Hey guys, and welcome back to Front Boards and Four Baggers, episode 23. I'm Eddie with Cornhole Bag Reviews, and today Corbin got pulled in by work again, so he's unable to join me. But I do have a special guest. I got David Morse. We got the Ultra Team Pro. Dave, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course, man. I appreciate you joining me. So, Ultra, man, I met you a little bit at the Iowa Open. You've been throwing great, throwing with Noah Almanza this year, and you've been really loving the Viper Bees, and we'll get into that in a sec because I'm the bag review guy, so I really wanted to like Viper Bees, and I've been trying to like them. And I'll tell you what, I like them when the boards are like lightning because it's slow enough. Because I would say these play like a 4.8, like a little slower than a Surefire. It could be because it's so big, but this material is a little bit slow. And anybody out there, you could find them for like $95 plus shipping whenever they do drops. They've been doing drops pretty regularly, and they keep in that price for a good amount of time. So what about this bag is really kind of been your go-to this year?
I think it just does a little bit of everything. I mean, I like a slower bag. I used to throw carpet this past year. So transitioning to Ultra, I wanted to find something slower. With the Viper B, like I said, it can do a little bit of everything. It's a slow bag, but it's still forgiving around the hole. And there's not many slow bags that are forgiving around the hole.
Sure.
And I think the Viper Bees does a great job of that. It's like a Surefire sticky side with a pretty fast slick side. I'd say it starts off really fast, like probably closer to 9, but it does get a little fuzzy and wears down. So it's probably like a 7 or 8 by the time it really wears down. But at the same time, like, the fill's a little bouncier than like a Surefire. I think you can roll these a little more. You can cut them a little bit more. And I think they're way more forgiving around the hole. It's got a bigger template. It's easier to push. It grabs the hole more. And it's just more forgiving, I think. For like a slow bag, it really is more forgiving. And you can do a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen you roll this bag. Most Ultra is not known for roll bag, right? Like if you think of any Ultra players, you're thinking Psychos, Vipers, Viper Cs. You're not thinking, roll shots. So I know for this bag, I would say I can cut this bag super easily. It grips and cuts like crazy. I would say I need to get mine. Mine are getting pretty broken in, but I think I need them a little bit more broken in. They still hang up just a tad, but collects, I totally agree with that. I mean, they're a big bag. There's a reason that the Game Changer is so popular. It's the same fast side as the Game Changer with that huge template. You can just grab stuff that shouldn't be able to be grabbed, sneak them around the hole, that kind of thing. So it is cool that Viper, and I mean, yes, or Ultra, but yes, they just came out with the Widow B, so now they're dabbling into a newer carpet scene. So we'll see how those work once you get those in your hands and everyone gets those in their hands.
Yeah, I'm excited for those. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but this is the only bag right now that I would say probably is rollable. I mean, maybe that Widow X, but that material doesn't really like to jump too much.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on the fill thing. So for anybody that doesn't know, Ultra kind of has different fills sometimes, right? Like they have some that have disc fill, some that have bead fill. I don't necessarily know when they change, but sometimes they do. These have, at least these lemonades I have that bead fill, which makes them a little bouncier, a little easier to do that cut and jump action. But overall, I can understand why you like it. I think, and it's funny, me and you had a conversation in Iowa that you said you had a bag that was perfect, and you actually got them 2 broken in, you said. And when you said you got them 2 broken in, like, most people don't think that's possible. So what did you lose when you kind of nuked them?
They just got too floppy. They got too loose. So when I was going to push bags, a lot of the time they were pushing and flipping over, or they would flip on the hole, flip over, and just hang up around the hole. They got almost too bouncy. The cuts were still good. Just like I think I lost a lot of my pushing ability just because they got so loose and floppy that they just naturally want to bounce. So the ones I'm using now, I took like a longer period to break them and just slowly broke them in. And I think they've stayed at that nice little area for a longer period.
Yeah, and I know I reached out to you when I wanted to break in mine, and you said that you wash yours with soap, then leave the soap in, and then boil it with the soap in for about 10 minutes, I believe, and then you take it out and dry it. I mean, they turn out great because I think it keeps that nice full feel to them. That's the perk of boiling. I know some people really like boiling. Some people are afraid to do it. I've found that when you boil, it keeps that nice full feel to it. It doesn't make it kind of like soften. The softener really loops it up really quick.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see how, and then throwing it from there, I'm sure you've just been throwing the crap out of them.
Yeah. I mean, like I in a perfect scenario, I would love just break bags in, just throwing them.
Me too.
you get too many bags, it takes too long in time, and not people aren't patient enough.
Yeah,
so,
dude. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, if you want your bag reviewed faster, send me a set that's already destroyed, because it's going to take me a while to get those things ready to go,
yes.
man. And the hard part is once you get a bag perfect, like thrown perfect, right? Because you felt bags that have been thrown to break in the beads start to get smoother, that kind of thing. It's really hard to get off that bag because you know how long it takes to get it there.
Yeah. You don't want to get rid of that for sure.
Yeah, but I couldn't have an Ultra Pro on and not talk about the most popular Ultra bag that exists, which is the Viper. These are series Vipers, which are slightly different than the new Vipers. I mean, these are unfair, but why do you think the Viper is the most popular bag? Do you think just because it's the most friendly? I mean, it feels best in hand. Like, why does everyone love the Viper?
I think it's a little bit of everything that you just said, and I completely agree. I wouldn't just be saying this because I'm sponsored by Ultra. I think Viper is probably the most popular bag and probably one of the best bags ever made. So I agree with all that. I think it can do a lot of everything. It's definitely a fast and faster bag. It's slick on slick. But if you want it to slow down, you can dirty them up and slow them down enough. They're super forgiving around the hole. They're easy to push. They're easy. They're I guess on the smaller side, and they can get thinner as well. So like they could sneak in, fit in the small areas for airmails, sneak around bags, fit in those tight holes. And I think that it just can do everything. And although it can do everything even better than most other bags out there.
And I would say series Vipers are in a league of their own, where I would only compare them to like original Cat 3s and like Gen 1 Game Changers, I think, are all kind of like that, like unfair level of cheater bag where they do stuff they shouldn't do. And to your point, I mean, my Vipers at least, and I know some people are hit or miss on the dots, and I didn't bring that up about the Viper B. I think that's the reason the Viper B has been really popular. I think people like that it doesn't have the dots, because the dots are like, they're a gimmick's the wrong way to put it. They're a cool thing to have, and I think they like do slow down the bag. But if you talk to most people, their first response is, oh, once you wear the dots off, they'll play awesome. Right? Where it's like they kind of want them to wear down a little bit. But these Vipers, at least, I could play these like a 5-6 speed. Like they're not lightning fast for me. That fast side is lightning fast though. Faster than the Viper. I mean, it's just crazy, crazy fast. But I mean, like you said, I mean, like to push one of these bags, you can miss half the bag and just touch it and they both sneak in. Like you really don't have to. I mean, the reason that I think they're so popular, same with Gen 1 Game Changers, you don't have to be flat. You don't have to really be that accurate. It seems like no matter how you throw the bag, it wants to cut the direction it's supposed to cut.
And it's going to grab that hole. It's going to fall in. It will come back into play.
Oh yeah. If you miss past the hole, it's coming back down. I mean, it's just it is ridiculous. But I mean, they're popular for a reason. They don't. I'd say there is some differences between the lines. So make sure you know what you're getting, because you got Gen 1s versus Gen 9s versus pre-stamp versus stamp versus there's so many different Viper lines at this point. But I mean, they're popular for a reason, and they're going to hold value for a reason. Everybody seems to want them. They sell fast no matter what version you got. Everybody wants to try out some Vipers. So
and people are paying big money for them too. So
but on the to give Ultra props, they have been dropping bags like crazy. They have so many lines, but I mean, they just released those Pink Panthera Vipers for $95 plus shipping. Like they're trying to make newer versions more accessible, which I can appreciate. And so if you guys are out there and you're like, I don't want to pay $160 for Vipers, $140 for Vipers, just wait. They'll do another drop at some point. And I love what they've been doing with designs now. They've always been simplistic, always been basic colors, flat colors, and now they're finally bringing in some, swirls or some different colorways and stuff, and I like what they're doing with that. So big shout out to Ultra for doing that. But let's get into your backstory a little bit as a Cornhole player. So how did you get into Cornhole originally?
So I started playing, during summer vacation every summer. Just we have a lake house, and we would play with our neighbors and family and friends up there. It would be my brothers and then a couple of our neighbors. We thought we were pretty good, so we saw some tournaments, just online or passing by like flyers, and we entered a couple of them, and we did half decent. When I say half decent, like out of 30 teams, we're finishing in the top 10.
Okay.
We started to see some of the same people. I mean, and this is in the Ohio, PA, New York area. So you run into like people. I was running into Stacia Pugh, Christine Papke, Adam Hissner, Jeff Reynolds, a lot of people that have been around for a long time. And they start saying like, hey, you're pretty good. Like, we play in tournaments, we play in leagues. Like, do you ever play in anything else? We're like, no, that we play in our backyard. You know, we play whatever at the lake. So I started joining some of their leagues, and then that was still just summer. I would play during the summer. I wouldn't touch a bag till the next summer. They finally convinced me to, you know, start playing a little bit more year round. So kind of just slowly took off from there.
See, it's funny too, because that story is very different than most people's stories, which is I played backyard. I went to an event and got my ass whooped. And I was like, what is this? But you seem to be like, I mean, decently competent from the start. I think a lot of, and people talk about this a lot, but I think cornhole is so much mental game. I think if you're a confident player, if you've been an athlete in the past, if you're used to like just like being focused and like consistent about things, it's easy to get good and good quickly in this game because it's all about consistency. And if you look at people at the highest level, it's a lot of mental game. I mean, it's just about consistency for 10 plus hours straight, you know, that kind of thing. So
and I mean, we pretty much taught ourselves. I mean, we just were playing amongst ourselves, all slowly getting better. You know, we taught how we threw ourselves. You know, the bags we used was all by ourselves. I mean, granted, this was 8-9 years ago, so like it wasn't as big as it was now. And we would go to these tournaments and people were good, you know, like they don't miss. And that's kind of what scared my brother and my friends away, because they're like, we don't like having to put every bag in the hole. We like being able to goof around and miss a bag here or there or whatever, not take it as serious and concentrate. And I didn't care. I just wanted to win, you know?
Yeah. No, and so, I mean, you brought up a little bit of the pros going around. So do you think, I mean, did your area really foster that good competition, good teaching thing for you when you were starting?
Yes, once I got into it. I mean, at first it was just, you know, friends and family, and we got good amongst ourselves. And when I would go play with them, I would still play with my friends or family. So like we didn't have a fighting chance against, you know, the top pros. But once I stopped playing with them and started playing with, you know, the other pros or, you know, top players from the area, then yes, I think it definitely, I mean, Dave Weiser was running the tournaments and he's been doing it for, you know, since the beginning. And, you know, just being around people like him and Adam Hissner and some of those players, you know, Stacia Pugh, I give a lot of credit to her as well. Just playing with them and seeing what they did, you know, in the leagues in the local area, and then they could go to the national scale and be successful there. Like, well, I'm doing pretty well against them here. You know, why can't I, you know, focus a little bit more, you know, practice a little more and get to that level.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, people talk about it all the time. If you want to get better, find the best players in your area and play with them, because that's how you're going to get better all the time. I mean, it's just being around people that don't miss and or people that can tell you when you're doing something wrong or teach you in a lot quicker manner, you know? So what made you want to go pro? Like, when did you kind of know you wanted to go pro? When did you think it could be something you could do?
I think it's just my competitive nature. I mean, I've just been competitive my whole life. Didn't necessarily be cornhole. You know, you could tell me, you know, if you want to be a top player, let's say you're really good at anything like water skiing or something, I would, if I was really good at it, I would follow it. I mean, I'm just competitive.
Sure.
It's just pretty awesome to say, like, you know, you're one of the top players in the country or world or something at any specific thing. And any tournament you go to, you're playing against other top players in the world. You know, it's not just, you know, I played hockey my whole life. I'm not like going to a beer league, playing intramural hockey. That doesn't do anything for me. Sure. You know, like doing a Wednesday night league. What does that get you? Cool. You know, it's nice to say you're at the top of something and you're playing against other top players in the world and being competitive with it.
We'll get into this a little bit later, so are you able to, let's say you go somewhere, you go to somebody's house, you go do something. Can you play games for fun, or are you the type of guy that's like, all right, cash got to be on the line, tournament's got to be on the line, something's got to be on the line for you to actually want to try?
I can play for fun. It's not fun for me. Just like, it's not fun. Like, honestly, I don't want to go play against them because I feel bad. Like, I don't want to just.
No, I mean, like, let's say you play other advanced players, but you're just at an event. And someone's like, "Hey, do you want to like play a game?" Will you just play Will you play cornhole for fun, or are you more so like, "All right, money's got to be on the line. Something's got to be getting me."
Okay, like, yeah, and I can play that for fun for sure. I mean, if it's, you know, catching my interest and I actually have to focus on it and be competitive, then yes, I can do it.
Okay.
I would enjoy it more if there was money or something on the line for sure. That will definitely make me focus a little bit more and catch my attention. But if there's another top player here or someone else that's like wanting to get better, I would rather play a game with them than just shoot airmails or something.
Sure. What was your path to pro? Like once you kind of decided it was like, all right, man, I'm getting good at this. I'm competitive at this. What were kind of the stepping stones for you when you got into it?
So, I mean, when I first started getting good was before there was like a pro division, and I just decided I wanted to dedicate myself. I started practicing anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day, probably 5 days a week. I would go over to a guy's house in Columbus. I was in college at the time, or just graduating from college. I went to Ohio State. And there was a guy that had a facility in his backyard. He built like a big barn in his backyard. You could fit 2 boards and a set of airmail boxes. I would go over there, 5 days a week, and we would play anywhere from 7 to 10 games a night, along with like 1 or 2 airmail games. And we did that for about 6 to 8 months. And I just saw my skill level skyrocket during that time. And like right after that was when the pro division came along, and they offered me a spot in the first pro division, and I accepted it.
Oh, cool. So, I mean, you've been a pro for a while. What when you're being a pro, like how much are you traveling? And I guess like this weekend you're playing in a regional, next weekend you got some stuff going on, but between, opens, local tournaments, regionals, nationals, I mean, is this an every weekend thing, 4 or 5 days a week? Like what is the schedule looking like?
Weekends, it's probably, I try to get at least 1 or 2 weekends off a month. But for the most part, it's traveling every weekend, at least locally. I'm in Chicago, and I'm lucky that there's so many tournaments in the area. Michigan's 2 hours away, Wisconsin's an hour away, Indiana's 45 minutes away. And then you obviously got all of Chicago area. So I'm lucky enough that I can travel to all those tournaments. When I first moved to Chicago, the ACL wasn't that big then. And there were so many cash tournaments in here. I spent almost every weekend just traveling around playing cash tournaments. I kind of miss that because now my time's taken up by regionals or opens or, shootouts are upcoming. So I don't get as many of those cash tournaments in anymore that I would like to. But if let's say there's nothing ACL related going on in the weekend, I would have 5 to 10 other tournaments to choose from within the Chicago area. Wow. That's within a 2.5 hour driving distance. So,
and Minnesota is very similar to that, the pre-ACL days that you were in, which is we don't really have any ACL that comes in our area. The closest we get's like we had the Iowa one that I was at, or we get some ACO here and there, but like almost nothing else. So Minnesota is very much, we have a lot of really good players, but it's all just we all travel play cash. Because it's just
that's
like we don't
that's exactly how it was when I first moved up here, and it was the opposite in Ohio. When I moved from Ohio to Chicago, Ohio was all ACO and ACL. There was hardly any cash tournaments.
Wow.
So when I was moving up to Chicago, it was just like it just was eye opening. Like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, there's no ACL here. It's all cash tournaments. I'm not used to that because, like I said, there was maybe 1 cash tournament a month. In Ohio, wow. If that, maybe once every 2 or 3, and then you come up to Chicago and there's 20 every weekend, especially during the summer.
Yeah.
So it was complete 180. Yeah.
This is my first full summer of playing competitive cornhole. So like I've been looking at the calendar around here, and I'm like, oh man, I got way too many commitments right now. It's just every weekend, just bang, 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 and a lot of them, like a lot of the ones around here, we do Friday night and Saturday. All day. So, you're like committed for the weekend almost. So you're doing hotel rooms every other weekend, going places. But it's good. And the thing that maybe you guys have your ACL family now, with all the people you meet traveling and whatnot. But I would say that the cool part about the cash game life or travel life is you get kind of your core group of like 30 Minnesotans or Chicago people that all kind of, you all see at all the cash tournaments and stuff around that maybe aren't pros, but they're all kind of the fun group to be around, which is kind of what we still have going on around here.
Yeah, and I guess like same thing for Chicago. When I first moved to Chicago, because there were so many cash tournaments, there weren't that many like set partners. People were just grabbing whoever, like because there were so many tournaments out there. Hey, you guys go here, I'm gonna go here. there's a 600 tournament here. There's one for 500 here. You guys go win that. And people just grab whoever they can take for the weekend.
Yep.
In Ohio, there were so few of tournaments, and everyone just had their set partners. Oh, there's a tournament coming a month from here. Set partners are here. And it was just completely different in Chicago. Everyone just plays with whoever. So
that is funny talking about that because around here, like I played with one guy Saturday. I have my other partner I played with 2 weeks ago. Like it's just kind of like, I don't know why not. We're friends. You're good. I'm good. You're also good. Yep. It's just like, all right,
Yep.
But I feel like there's the fun part about being a pro and competitive part being a pro, and then there's a fun part about being a cash game tournament. And I think a lot of the people listening to this too, like there's people that strive to be pros. There's locals here that really want to be pros and they're traveling to an ACL, but you can have just as much fun or make just as much, if not more money playing cash tournaments too. So don't feel like pro is the only option if you guys are good at cornhole and just want to keep around and playing. So what do you think is the most, misunderstood thing about being a pro, either by a normal player or by an advanced player? Like you've been in it so long, you got those reps in, but like, what do you think is kind of misconstrued by someone who's maybe coming up and wants to be a pro that is like, oh, I totally get it.
I mean, like from the outside world, I think just people do look up to you, or, people catch your name or see you places that you would never even think of. There's so many people that come up to me and say, hey, like you did great there, whatever. We saw, we're watching, cheering you on. And that doesn't even cross my mind when I'm in the moment. But it is definitely cool to see that, you're looked up to, or you're impacting someone, or like you're giving them motivation, to be better. There's have people come up to me, ask for, tips on my grip or my throw or why I throw a certain way. And they say that like they like, my motion and want to model it after. And, that's not something you're thinking about when you're practicing or playing or anything. You're like, this works for me. Like, I don't know why anyone else is, modeling it the same way. So I think that is definitely something that, hits home more than it used to, just because there's such a big following and it's only growing from there.
Oh yeah. And I would say that I was talking to Michelle Thompson about this too, which is, I think it's cornhole is a very unique thing right now, and it's growing, but at least in its current stage, that the community as a whole and almost everyone in it is overwhelmingly positive in terms of support, where like, like you being a pro, like 99% of people talking to you are going to say like something positive to you. Like, wow, you did a good job, or I was watching this or doing that. There's not yet a ton of, just constant critics or negative stuff coming at you all the time, which I think is
That's really true.
Yeah, which is a really cool part. Same with me being in the content space, which is like normally you put yourself out on YouTube, you got to deal with all this random hater crap coming in. But been very lucky that this community is overwhelmingly positive, even when stuff goes wrong or even when you might struggle. I'm sure people are still overwhelmingly positive about what you're doing, which I think is very beneficial to trying to be a pro, and especially with how many young kids we're seeing now making pro or making high level tournaments and whatnot. I think that really welcoming community is really crucial for them at that age as well, to not feel ostracized.
I agree. I mean, I think we're at the point where everyone's just wanting content. So why put anything down or whatever? They like it. We're exploding, and the more content out there, the better for sure.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to embrace. They're going to support everything. Yes.
I know. I just have to get big enough that when a pro player decides to finally do it, because they'll catch me. So they know way more than I do. So I'm like, I got to get big enough faster. No, but yeah, no, there's definitely an itch for content. I mean, like you look at anything. I mean, dude, I posted that video of how to throw a bag flat, and my bag's not even that flat, but I just posted a tutorial on it. It gets like 400 views a day because there's just so many people trying to learn the game and learn how to do basic things in cornhole, and I saw a stat. And I bring this stat up all the time, but they're saying right now that 12,000 people are finding out about competitive cornhole a month right now. So I mean, just think about how
I did not see that. That's just crazy.
I mean, all over the country, but still, it's like just that many people every month are like, oh, what's a blind draw? What's a rosin filled bag? Like all this kind of shit. So give it how many more months?
You said 12,000. So if you get 10%, you get 10%, 5% to actually like follow through and start competing at like a social level.
Oh yeah,
that's big.
Well, that's what we talk about all the time.
That's a big number.
If you look at pro last year versus pro this year, because they look at the stats, right? The PPR last year, median PPR was like 8.6, and this year it's like 9.7. Like it's a full point higher this year just in PPR base. give it 1 or 2 more years with that many people joining the hobby. Where the heck is this going to go? To be top 100, you got to be a 10 PPR player soon. Like, what are we looking at? It's just getting crazy.
That's why I think like eventually the ACL is going to have to do something at these nationals. I think double elimination tournaments just aren't going to cut it. You show up and everyone there is good. And if you go 0-2, you're done for the day. You go 0-2, there could be, a top 10 player that goes 0-2 and then they're screwed for the next national because they're seeding. And there's only 4 or 5 events to set for the pro status for next year to make that top 100. And you're basing it all off of 2 games. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to be a snowball effect because your seed's just going to be terrible from event to event going forward. And you only have 5 events. And that's two games potentially if you go 0-2. So that's 10 games if you just keep going 0-2. I think they're going to have to build or do something more because everyone's going to be so good. And that's just a lot of pressure and a lot riding on, those 2 games. And if everyone's so good, the standings just aren't going to be necessarily accurate.
Well, we're already starting to see that. I mean, look at people like Matt Morden.
Oh, exactly.
Matt Morden's outside the top 100. And last year he was like 30th, right? It was just like, like those top 250. I mean, almost every player, if not every player in that top 250 is the best player in their local area, or they're one of the best players in their state. Right? Where it's like, they're only ranked, they're outside the top 100. It's like, but I guarantee you they crush everyone in their region. Like, it's such a level of cornhole that it's so hard to, like you're saying, to keep up with. And the seeding thing is huge. I mean, if you're like the 100th seed or something, and then you got to play Matt Guy first round, it's like, well, that was fun. Good job. It's like, you're only going to plummet.
It just screws you off from going to the next national. And I think they just need a bigger sample size because everyone is getting so good, and you can't just like expect to have a couple easy wins and for the standings to be right at the end. Mm-hmm. So
there's no easy wins.
It's intense.
I mean,
no, exactly. There's no easy wins, and
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, there's no easy wins, and there's so much riding on being that top 100. They want those standings to be correct. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're doing such a small sample size, the standings aren't going to be correct.
Well, and Mike Morton was talking about that.
The more information taken in, the more.
Oh, sorry. Mike Morton was talking about that in around the ACL, which was that like the top 100 after last year, after National 2, was only like 15% the same after National 5 because there's such a small sample size. It just jumps around like crazy because it's just like you could be 170th and then take second in your bracket and now you're 70th because it's like such a small point spread. That I mean
exactly,
and whether it's what they do, like whether it's like, all right, you get X amount of points for finishing first, second, third, and do like a round robin, right? You get 1 point for every win, and then you get a bonus point for taking fifth, 2 bonus points for taking third in your bracket outside of pool play, something that gets you just more points in the pool. Where it's like, all right, if you still have 0 points after 2 events when we've given you 5 guaranteed games, then you should be bottom 200, 250. But if you're going 3-1,
there just needs to be more leading into that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going 3-1 every pool play, and then you're getting a tough bracket draw, well, you're good enough to beat tier 3 pros, right? So you're probably like a tier 2 to tier 1.5 pro, right? You're not in the upper echelon yet, but you're not 240th.
Exactly. Yeah. And the way it's broken down right now, it's 5 tournaments. That's not a big sample size at all, And what's worse about it is one leads into the next. So if you're screwed out at the first one, you're screwed at the next one, and then your whole season's probably going to be all impacted by that. Yes, the top players, the Matt Guy can get himself out of that. But if so many people are so good and so closely grouped together, it's tough to make your way out of that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, think about anything with double elimination, like anybody can beat anybody in one game. I mean, am I going to beat Matt Guy? Probably not. If he misses 40 airmails and I don't miss a bag, I could beat Matt. Technically speaking, I could beat Matt Guy. But is it going to happen? Probably not. But in a 1-game sample size or a 10-game sample size, you can get screwed over. You can get 1 bag break that hangs up on the hole, 1 missed airmail, 1 here and there. How many games do you lose 21-20 that don't count for shit?
Yeah, my first national, my 2 losses, I think were 21-18 and 21-19 or something like that. Like they were by a couple of points. Yeah.
But then on the stat sheet, when they go to around the ACL, oh, Dave Morse went 0-2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brutal. But
exactly.
So what do you think is the hardest part about being a pro? Do you think it's just the constant pressure where it is right now? Do you think it's the mental game, consistency, the travel and sleep? Like what do you think is so hard about being a pro?
In the past, I would say it's just, working around a schedule and just trying to figure out what events you want to go to and the travel. But now I'd say just the competition now. I mean, this year is taking such a big jump and the pressure is definitely on for people. I mean, the days of being like a part-time cornhole player, they're going to be coming to an end. And I think people are starting to realize that. Like, you can't skip. I mean, I'll be honest, a couple of years ago, I was practicing every day. Over the past 2 or 3 years, I haven't been practicing. I would just go to a blind draw, maybe play in a league. I would play once or twice a week after that. Going into this year, I knew things were going to be different. And I'm one of the few people that have started, rededicating my time and started practicing again. I think that's just going to be the new norm. You have to put in the 3 to 5 hours a day if you want to be successful and maintain your pro status. Well, I think that's the toughest part.
It's also like the.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah. We're on a teeny delay, so whatever. But you saying that you're able to roll the Viper Bs and you used to throw carpetbags and stuff. From watching outside in, to be a pro, it's almost going to be at the point you need to have every shot in your arsenal. You need to have a mat guy 65 to 70% airmail. You got to be able to roll and cut if you need to, if the airmail is like not safe. Your push shots got to be clean. You got to be able to throw blocks. You got to be able to step out. How many pros still don't step out? They just push through, they slide up the middle. And it's like how many times could you just bully it out of the way or take the middle control back, play more chess like cornhole. And you're starting to see now with Matthew Creekiller winning a national, Alex Hicks is winning, like flipping everything that isn't a national, but still doing really well. All these control style players are starting to see a good amount of success. There'll always be the fastback players, right? I mean, if Matt Guy makes 99% of his slide shots, he's always going to compete. But
you're going to win, yeah.
But you need to have more shots available to you. And I feel like as the years go on, every single player is going to be able to roll every bag. And every single player is going to have a 70% airmail. And every single player is going to be able to slide every bag. And the players that don't practice and learn how to fix their little holes in their game are going to fall real fast.
And that brings up a good point. I think if you have a weakness in your game, people start to realize it and will be so good that they'll be able to bring that out of you and focus on it. If you have a bad airmail, if someone's airmail is better than you, they're going to be able to force you into airmail like situation almost every frame. And I think people will start to learn other people's weaknesses and being so good at controlling bags that they can put you into those type of situations. If you can't roll a bag, if you can't push a bag, they're going to make you push a bag every single frame. Mm-hmm. I think people will start to learn that.
No, and that's huge. I mean, and that's in every sport, right? Like if you're a football team and your right defensive back is out and you got the dude from the practice squad, guess which defensive back is getting thrown at 45 times in a row. It's like, it's like with every sport. And when Matt Guy loses, it's because they force him to shoot airmails and he misses a couple airmails. I mean, you have to force your opponent to do the thing they don't like doing. I mean, in Minnesota, I don't know how Chicago was pre-ACL, but in Minnesota, everybody throws fast bags. And so you throw up a block and everybody looks at you like, what the hell is that thing? What am I supposed to do with that? Right. And we're starting to get people that are better at airmails and stepping out and cutting and pushing through. But it's amazing how when you start playing a chess game against people that have been playing checkers for years, they're like, what the hell are you doing? This isn't how you play. And I'm like, let's go. Let's shoot airmails. But that's so true how you say that. I mean, there's so many people I play against show up with Gen 1 game changers. It's like, all right, center block. What are you going to do?
Block.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, it's cool that you say that. And it's cool that you've picked up practicing again and realizing that, because my fear is that, in around the ACL, Trey and Anthony were just talking about that if they redrew the captains for the team event, because the last year the team event was the top 12 players, if they redrew captains, none of the captains would remain the same, which is bonkers. Because none of the top 12 captains are top 12 right now. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. And look at the captains. They're all very, very, very good. It's just, it's just hard to be that consistently good. And, players like you that have now started to practice, but I've talked to how many pros that are like, I don't really practice. I just play blind draws. Well, it's going to get to the point now where it's like, LeBron James still practices. He has to, you can't just play blind draws.
Exactly.
So, but
and I never really thought blind draws were good practice. Yeah.
No, and you're out having fun with your buddies and having some drinks and throwing whatever bag, you're not throwing your designated bag with your partner flocked in.
You play for 10 minutes and then you sit for 45. You play for 10 minutes, you sit for 30, 40 minutes, and you're just, it's not consistent practice. It's not that good. And like you said, you're throwing whatever bag, you're just having a good time.
Yeah. And also, how many times in blind draw do you get two good players versus two good players in a game that actually lasts 20 minutes and is actual practice?
True. True. It's a different mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. 90% of the time in blind draw, you're like, all right, well, this, that, here, or other, someone's going to score. It's not like, all right, it's me and Noah against Matt and Brett, and we know that everyone is good and everyone can score. It's just, that's a completely different mentality.
Completely different. Yeah. That is very true.
So is there any specific players that you think you play well against or poorly against? Is there anybody that's got your number right now or you got theirs?
So there's definitely one player that kills me every time. And he knows this. And this goes back to days prior to the ACL. This is way before ACL. And he's a new ACL pro, but he's been around the game forever. He just didn't, become an ACL pro. That player is Terry Mathis. Terry Mathis has always destroyed me. I don't know what, and he came into the ACL and everyone was like, oh, he's a rookie. No, he's been playing the game and he's been a top 20 player in the world, since before I was playing. So he's been around the game forever and he plays a smart game and he can hit every shot. He can push, he can airmail. He doesn't have the prettiest bag in the world, but it doesn't matter. It goes in.
But he's got your number.
Yeah. He kills me. Seriously. And he knows it. We joke around about it. And on the flip side of that.
Go
ahead. We can talk about Terry.
No.
I'm fine. It's well known that Terry has my number, and I think it's hilarious. But on the flip side, a top player that I do pretty well against is I would say Adam Hissner. I've known Adam, since I started playing, and I've always played against him pretty well. Yes, he's beaten me times, but we usually have close games, and I've come out on top against him, multiple times. Like a couple years ago when the ACL had the Devour Man of the Year, they took the top 32 pros or top 32 players in the country and invited everyone to the single elimination tournament where winner got $10,000. My first round matchup was Adam Hissner. Everyone's picking Adam Hissner. I told Trey Ryder, I was like, I beat Adam all the time. I'm not afraid of playing Adam. Like, I'm going to beat him. Sure enough, I beat him like 21-6, 21-7, or whatever it was. It wasn't, so I'm comfortable playing against Adam. We joke around. We always have good games. So I would definitely say that's a flip of the Terry Mathis, where he crushes me 90% of the times we play.
And we talked earlier about how mental cornhole is, but do you think that, so let's say with Adam or with Terry, on a positive and a negative note, do you think that you get an advantage or a disadvantage mentally going into that game?
I would say, yeah. If you're comfortable playing against someone, you're loose. Everyone goes into the game thinking that they're going to win or has a chance to win. If you're not, then that's a terrible mindset. You're going to lose.
You're already done. Yeah.
But yeah, now Terry and I will joke about it, so I'm more loose. But a couple of times in, my doubles partner back from Ohio, Daryl Hagg, was always like, Terry kills you. He kills you every time. So after the first 3-4 times it happened, I'm thinking about that. And now it's a lot more loose and joking around, but I definitely say there's a mental edge there. If you're comfortable with someone versus if you're not, if you're confident there or if you're not, there's definitely affects your game.
Yeah. Do you find, is there any style of player that you like or dislike to play against? You know, you got your Damon Dennis crazy slow players, you got blocker players and roll players, you got only fast side slide in players. Is there anybody that you would rather play against or not play against in terms of play style?
So speed doesn't matter. I play against, you know, people that play slow. I can play against people that play fast. That doesn't matter at all. I would rather play against a player that likes the board dirty. I feel like I can, you know, manipulate the whole, you know, move my bags around better than almost anyone in the country. So I like playing that game. Another style that I like playing aggressive players. Like Matt Guy. I've had success against Matt Guy. Just because, you know, you can bait him into going for stupid shots. Like he'll hit them, but I mean, if he misses one or two of those are big rounds. And then on the flip side, I'd say I don't like just playing like slick side players. It's just boring to me.
Yeah.
I don't like going hole for hole. Yeah, I'll go hole for hole with people. It's just not fun.
No.
So that would definitely say be, I mean, I wouldn't say I get bored during games, just like I might start focusing on like, there hasn't been a block in a while. Let me throw up a block, you know, like let me have some excitement in this game. I don't want to just put 30 in a row, both people, and we get 0 points out of it. You know, there's nothing worse than making 27 out of 28 and you give up 2 points because the other person made up 28 out of 28.
Well, and I tell people all the time, I think the hardest shot in Cornhole, and I'll live and die by this, is the on-purpose block. I think the block is the hardest bag to throw consistently in the middle because if you miss left or you miss right, it's out of play and it's a bumper and your opponent's hole is 8 inches big. But if it's perfectly in the middle, then you get to manipulate airmail, you get to kind of control the hole. But I think if your goal every round is throw a block right in the middle and not like accidentally, like the board's a little slow and you meant to slide and it stops and blocks and looks cool. But like, if you're like, I'm going to throw a block, I think that's the hardest one to do every single round.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, my worst shot is like a back block. If I have a block, someone else has a block and then I need to put another block there, I'm awful at that. That's probably my worst shot that I need to work on. It's tough to practice that. No one wants to sit there and practice back blocks. Yeah, like you practice playing ghost games, deck rounds, whatever, just practice games. No one just sits there and throws back blocks for 10, 15 minutes every day. And that's probably my weakness of the game. That's definitely the hardest shot for me.
See, the funny part is we're going to get to the point that the best players in the world do sit and practice black blocks for hours a day.
Yeah, true. True.
You know, if you're like, this is the worst thing I'm at, you probably should be sitting there for 6 hours just throwing back blocks. As shitty as it sounds, you just got to do it.
Yeah, but the issue is you either have to set the bags up, walk to the other hole,
correct,
other board, put back blocks there and go remove them, or you have to be able to throw a perfect block and then block behind it. Like either way, it's not going to be easy to do. There's going to involve a lot of walking. And I'm too lazy to set up bags, go move them.
Hey, don't worry. We'll get to the point. We'll get to the point soon. You make enough money, you just hire a guy that sets up back blocks.
Yeah, you're gonna have your own, like NBA players have people that pass the balls and then train with them. Cornhole players will have their own trainers that play practice games with them. They set up drills for them to play. Focus on different things. Yeah, same thing.
Nah, that's funny.
Hopefully someday soon.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think we're far off in terms of we're getting like for such a simple game. There's so much to it, and I think that's what a lot of people that maybe aren't in the competitive scene deep enough haven't figured out. That like once both players are good enough to go hole for hole, 15, 20 in a row. And then you can go to the level of, all right, I'm blocking, then you're cutting around, then I'm pushing, replacing, then we're airmailing, like this level of gameplay that it's like every round there's a smart and an aggressive choice and which one's actually right determined on the score. And there's so much mental game to the game. And when can you go aggressive? When should you stay safe? When is it worth giving up points? Laying on. It's so crazy how deep the game goes. And so I think as people see it more, you don't realize how deep the game actually is.
Yeah, I mean that's a big reason why this has exploding. It's easily accessible. You can play indoors, you can play outdoors. You don't need a lot of equipment. It's relatively cheap. I mean, unless you're getting $500 bags, but the equipment's cheap. You can transport it easily, but it's different than like bowling or darts where what you do affects your opponent. If you're playing someone in bowling, they throw a 300. Well, you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything to block it. Cornhole, you can throw a block. You can push bags. You can go over their bag. You can go around it. That's different. There's actually a chess, part of this game rather than just me versus you who gets a better score.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people don't realize that, it's just, it's so, but, and also another point about the easy accessible, like there's no almost athletic, performance necessarily. I mean, you could be a 12-year-old that's never played before. You could be a 300-pound dude that like can barely walk. It doesn't matter if you could throw a bag at the hole. I mean, we have a player, there's like that dude on Facebook that has like no arms and no legs or whatever, and he's on the ground throwing bags and he's good. It's like it's such a simple game, but then it's so mental and so much strategy to it.
Yeah, you'll hear these top players. Some of them were former athletes. Some of them probably have no athletic ability at all, and they're still top players. They're still ACL pros. Mm-hmm. So people can come from any background and become successful if they dedicate themselves.
So what do you think is the most common mistake that a normal player makes? Do you think it's just a consistency thing? Do you think it's being too aggressive? Do you think it's not being aggressive enough? Like when you go to an event and maybe someone's like a good advanced player, but you're like, dude, you're not there because of XYZ.
I think it's just like gameplay, like strategy, like just not knowing what shots to take, like shooting airmails in dumb situations, chasing bags, pushing when you should have blocked. I think it's just simple gameplay things. When I get matched up with players in blind draws, I like to talk a lot and, talk about strategy and what shots they should take. There's been players that come up with me and say, I wouldn't have thought of half those shots that you told me to take. I was like, they're just no brainers to me. Sure. Like, what else were you going to do there? Like, why were any of those other options and an actual option? It just, I think a lot of those players just need to really think about like, okay, if I do this, what is my opponent going to do next? And then what does that leave me with? You got to be thinking ahead and what are going to be the results of your actions. And I think that's just where people really struggle. And once they figure that out, their game can jump to the next level.
And I think too, like one of the things that blows my mind or blows people's mind the most when I say it is that sometimes making the bag in the hole is not the right shot. Like if they have a block somewhat on their side and you just bully and take the middle, that's better than making it. Because now they have to deal with your bag.
If they have a bag hanging, don't put your last one in because that's easier for them to drag. I mean, if they have a bag hanging, your bag's there. It makes it way tougher for them to drag it. Who cares if you throw a 10? If you put them in, they drag their bag. It's a 12-on-12 watch. Make it a little more difficult for them.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people this all the time. If you make your opponent's shots harder than your shots over the course of a game, you'll win.
That's a great way to look at it.
Because if everybody could slide the bags in. So if it's easy for me all the time and it's hard for you, you're going to make more mistakes than me because I have less hard shots. I mean, it's just, it makes sense when you say it, but some people are like, oh, wow, that's weird. Or like, we talked about this a second ago, the step out thing, but it's so true. Like if someone lays a bag somewhere in the middle and I can step out and bully into it, it's like most people are like, oh, I got a block behind or, oh, I got an airmail. It's like, dude, there's so many other opportunities or things you could be doing. I think people think there's like 2 shots. It's like, there's like 40, dude. Like, which way do you want to go? What are you comfortable throwing? So, I mean, but yeah, it's cool talking about bag, and I think the trouble right now with not the trouble, but the ESPN thing, right? And I was talking to Trey about this. They have to keep it quote unquote dumbed down or easier to listen to for the viewers that don't watch a lot of cornhole. But I think it's really hard because I want to talk analytically when I do commentary, but at the same time you kind of have to mesh analytical with just like normal talking because it's not everyone can understand the thought process. That's why with the Cornhole vlogs that I do, people like them because I'm talking through, I was thinking this, and I ended up on this because of this. you know, but there's 97 things happening.
Yeah. And I get what they're saying. I mean,
yeah,
you got to dumb it down because half the people don't know any of those shots, what players can actually do. Like, it blows people's mind when you tell people you can actually curve around things, you can roll, you know, you have different options. They're like, what do you mean? You throws and goes straight. Like, the fact that people can actually curve bags is always like mind blowing for beginners. So for the casual audience, you know, it's tough to describe all those things. But at the same time, I think some of those like higher level shots are the things that really, you know, gravitate new players in. Just like, holy shit, they can actually do that. That's crazy. Like, everyone's played this game before. You know, they know how the game works, but like seeing that, like the advanced level shots, that's cool for the everyday person to be able to see.
I'm just waiting for the first person to land an on-purpose penguin on TV, and then Trey trying to explain that he tried to do that. But so
that will be something.
Being on the big stage, streams, TV, any kind of nationals, do you feel like you've gained a different level of confidence? Do you think playing on the stream takes a different level of, like, you know, chops, like earning it, like learning how to deal with it, that kind of thing?
Yes and no. I mean, it's nice to get there and, you know, validate, you know, all the hard work and practice and over the years, you know, that you've put in. But at the same time, I still think back to, you know, my roots, like where I started and everything, where I came from. So there is some confidence, but you don't want to get satisfied. And that's something that, you know, I have done in the past just because I try to do other things outside of Cornwall. I still have a girlfriend. I still want to have a social life. So I was like, oh, you know, I've gotten pretty good. You know, like, I don't need to play 5 days a week.
Sure.
You know, and then that's the downfall of it. You know, you want to stay hungry. And I think that's what people need to do. And that's what, you know, I've gotten back to doing over the past couple of months is, you know, truly dedicating myself and back to practicing like what I used to.
And I think a lot of people are, especially pros that maybe have been in the top for a while and maybe aren't this year, are finally starting to realize, like, you know, I'm not going to get on TV every event. Like, if I don't grind, like it's like those opportunities are becoming more few and far between, that you have to capitalize when you have the opportunity. Yeah,
that's a great point. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your throwing style, because I would say you have a pretty unique release. Like, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it on video, but it's a unique step side push thing that you do. But have you always thrown it that way? Have you ever, like, were you ever looking on video like, man, I look different than everybody else? Or
to some degree. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with my grip. I probably grip it different than 80 to 90% of the players.
Oh, really? How do you grip it?
I like most people, you know, put their four fingers underneath the bag and their thumb on top. I put my fingers over the corner of the bag.
So you throw it almost like Doug Saft? Because he does like that full wrap like this, right?
Yeah, I'm exactly like that.
Okay.
So like I said before, we kind of taught ourselves to play. And, you know, I always use the example. People ask me, like, why you throw that way? And I always use this example every single time. If you're trying to spin a flat object and, you know, have it spin flat, you're not going to grab your fingers here and try to somehow spin it like this. It's going to be wobbly. Why wouldn't you put your finger on the corner and really spin it? How are you going to get more rotation? How are you going to get something to actually spin flat? If you're throwing a Frisbee, most people put their finger on the edge to actually like spin it flat. You're not going to grab something like this and somehow make it spin flat. You're going to put your finger here and spin it. So I've always just kind of spin it, you know, hold my bag that way. And because of that, I think I throw harder than a lot of other people. And that's kind of just, you know, I think my motion has kind of evolved from there, you know, throwing stickier bags and wanting to be able to roll and stuff. I think it's just kind of evolved. So it does look different, but it feels natural to me.
Oh, yeah.
It's always kind of been that same thing. Yeah, exactly. You know, I can make 40 in a row if I need to. I mean, not consistently, but there's been times I've made 40, 50 in a row. I can also airmail. I can also roll. I can push. I think my pushes are a lot better than a lot of other people's as well, just because I do throw hard. I still have, some high spin on that bag. So
in terms of the roll shot,
the downside is.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But how did you get into throwing the roll shot? Like, did you just see someone doing it one day and you're just like, I want to add that to my repertoire? Like, where did that? Because I know it's common now, but you've been around for so long. Where did that come from?
I think it came from. I think my bag just naturally always had an upward tilt, just because I always threw stickier bags, and the stickier the bag, the harder it is to slide up the board if it's down to the front or completely flat. So I think I always kind of tilted it upwards, just because I always threw suede, and a lot of like the nationals or majors were always super sticky boards. So I think over time my bag just always kind of had that natural tilt, and then probably a lot of it came from when you would go to like cash tournaments with bad equipment. Because I had that natural tilt, my bag would naturally bounce over bags just on bad equipment, and I just would always play that bounce. And then once carpet bags came around, like I figured, like, okay, if I throw it the same way, it's pretty similar to what I've always been doing. It kind of just made sense there, because I would go to those cash tournaments with bouncy boards. I couldn't get it to land normal. It would just be bouncing every single time. And I could, play with that tilt there to make it bounce higher or farther, just depending on how many blockers, how high the blockers were, where on the board the blockers were. So like on those cash tournaments with, the bad equipment, the bouncy boards, I could, play with the tilt of my bag to affect that bounce. So when the carpet bags came around, it was very similar to that. Just you would work your tilt, you would work how the bags spun, and it just made sense. It was natural.
So you're doing.
I really didn't have to work
shot before there's a roll shot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well that makes. sense.
With corn bags, bouncy boards, 2-3 foot boards, that boards bounce. So. And there was a lot of those tournaments here in Chicago when I first moved up here. A lot of corn bag tournaments, a lot of just random boards. All the boards have different legs. They all have different bags. That's just how it is.
Yeah, people take for granted these nice 3/4 inch double support brace, double leg boards we got now, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Shit, I've played in tournaments up here where there's no cancellation scoring. So we both throw 4-baggers, it's 12-12.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's a unique one.
There's some crazy stuff. Yeah, yeah.
So Ultra Cornhole. So you threw carpet for a while and stuff, and then you're now with Ultra. How did the Ultra opportunity come about?
So I've known Mark Pryor, for a couple of years now. Ultra is obviously one of the highly respected, good standing companies in Cornwall. We've talked in past years about working something out, and I've just always, been with other companies. We talked again this off season, and he made comments about just the new bags that he was coming out with, the Viper B and the carpet down the line, and I already knew like what he had, and obviously everything he makes is great and it's highly respected, and there's a want for all of it. So by the time we got to talking, it just made sense. I mean, we already had a relationship before. I've hopped on some of his live streams and done some commentary with him at past nationals. He's an engineer. I have an engineering degree as well. So there's mutual respect there as well. It just all kind of made sense. And when he was coming out with new bags and he was saying he wanted to grow his team and just have like top pros on his team, I've always wanted to be a part of that, wanted to be with one of the biggest, best companies in the country. So it was kind of a no-brainer from there.
That's awesome. So how has it been so far being part of the team? I mean, it seems like you guys are always together for pictures, and it's a huge team. There's tons of pros. Like, has it been pretty welcoming being part of that?
I would say for sure it's welcoming. We have our own group chat with all the sponsored players from Ultra. We chat in there. We have questions. We shout them out or Rich or Mark or someone will chime in. Have an answer for you. On top of that, I would just say a lot of these companies, a lot of people make promises or talk to you about their goals. He's delivered on all of them. Like he said, I want to do X, Y, and Z. That's going to happen when he says that. Like he took a chance and did all these pro releases, these pro picks, this year. That was something he had talked to us about in the beginning. I've had companies, talk about that in the past, and it just never comes to fruition. When Mark has a plan, he's going to stick with it. He's very thorough. He's very organized, and I love that about him.
That's awesome. No, I mean, I think that's really important to have a well-working team and to know that, that your concerns and stuff actually matter, or that your input actually matters, or that you could possibly have. I think the chance that you could actually have an input on something if it would affect X amount of people and even consumers down the line, and then they actually value that opinion is a good relationship as a player in a org.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we have with him. So, I mean, it's been great.
So Noah Almanza and you are partnering this year. How did that combination come to fruition? Obviously, he's been with Ultra a little bit longer, and then you coming in, did he just need a partner? Have you guys been talking in the past? Like, where did that kind of come from?
So this is Noah's first year with Ultra as well. He wasn't with Ultra last year. But Sutton and I partnered last year, and then before that, I was with Mike Jacquez. Just always kind of had bag issues before when I was with Mike. It wasn't that big of a deal because it was kind of just sticky and slick. He threw slick side, I threw sticky side. It wasn't that big of a deal. But as bags, have progressed so rapidly, like I've realized I wanted a slower bag, and Sutton wanted a faster bag. So I wanted to find someone that was versatile and could definitely throw something that I wanted. Noah fits that to a T. He can throw anything. I mean, he threw carpet bags at the pro qualifier where he had one loss and qualified. Then he'll turn around and throw Vipers. It doesn't matter to him. He can throw whatever bag. On top of that, he's from the area he's from Ohio, where I used to play. He transferred to Ohio State. So he goes to Ohio State now. I graduated from Ohio State. We have that little connection. And I knew Noah even before I moved to Chicago. So when I was at Ohio State, Noah was still playing. He was a young kid. And he would come around. So I knew him before. And then once I moved to Chicago, I would still see him popping up at some of the tournaments that were kind of in between, the Indiana area or some of the Michigan regionals that I would head out to every once in a while. So I still would see him here and there. And I saw him take the leap. I mean, over the last couple of years, he really wanted to, because before he was kind of just playing with his dad. And I saw him take the leap in the skill level, and then he showed up at the qualifier. And I mean, he was lights out. So once he qualified, I was looking for a partner. He had mentioned to me that, to keep him in mind, I was previously with Kill Shots, and Austin had been playing with Noah quite a bit. Austin would pick up Noah for tournaments. They would go around and play some cash tournaments. So he was always in my ear saying how great Noah's really gotten. And people don't really realize how big of a leap Noah has taken. Everyone realizes that now, but at the time, the national media really hadn't noticed that yet. Once I started talking to Ultra was on board with Noah. They mentioned that Noah and I, he thinks it's a great fit. We have the connection with Ohio State, with Ohio. So once Ultra said that they wanted Noah, we ran with it. There was no questions asked.
Awesome. I mean, you guys have been making a good team, and I think, bag selection's huge, because I was going to ask, what do you think is the biggest key to the double team? You kind of went into it a little bit, because in my opinion, it's the same thing, which is just, if I get to throw the bag that I'm in love throwing and my partner is in love throwing it, it makes the game so much different than having to compromise in a bag. And like you said with Noah, he could throw literally any bag. I've seen him throw Psychos and then throw Viper Bs the next game. It's just and he's got such a flat release and stuff, and just the way that he throws the bag, I think it's just lens to that. But it seems like you guys have been not only having success, but it seems like from a chemistry perspective, you guys enjoy to play together and usually have pretty good chemistry off the courts as well, which I think is huge.
Yeah. I would say our playing styles are very similar too. Like when we're going through shot selection, I think we're pretty much almost always on board with the shot, like the correct shot. We're like when we're talking through what we think we should do, we're always land on the same term. So I think that's key as well. I mean, just having someone that wants to play the same style of game that you want to play.
Well, yeah, and especially if you consider yourself, one, a competitor, and two, a smart player, right? If you can rely on your partner to make the correct decision and you don't have to say it, it takes a lot of the pressure off you where you're just like, oh, I trust that he's going to make the right choice. Like, I don't need to tell him. He knows exactly what the smart pick is here or the aggressive pick is. And then vice versa. You could be like, I'm confident that I can go for the roll shot because no one knows that it's the right shot.
Yeah. I mean, half the time I don't have to say anything. He doesn't really have to say anything. When I do see him looking at something, I usually ask him what he wants to do. And he tells me, the option he's weighing. And then I'll tell him what I'm weighing. We usually always come to agreement, and it's usually the same thing. So I think that's just huge as well, along with the bag selection. I think those are the two key components of making a partnership work.
Yeah, no, I agree. So a little bit of a practice routine. You said you're getting back into practice routine. And you kind of answered a lot of the questions I was going to ask, but do you have a go-to practice routine other than just playing Ghost or Decas? I mean, is there stuff you like to set up? Do you like setting up situationals? Do you like shooting X amount of air mails? Or do you just kind of just slide, just do whatever feels good?
So usually when I first get there, I'll just grab a handful of bags, 12, 16 bags, and I'll just throw. Just throw down and back just until I warm up. And during that, I'll work on sliding in the hole. I'll work on pushing, grabbing bags, air mails, rolls, just, a little bit of everything. Once I'm warmed up, then I start doing a little different games, ghost games, duck rounds. What I like doing is I also like, practicing air mails. I'll throw 100 air mails. I'll get 10 bags and throw 10 rounds. So it's 100 air mails, 10 bags, 10 rounds, 100 air mails. And that will just give you a nice, easy percentage of what's your air mail percentage. Doing that once a day or handful times a week, I think that's always beneficial. I mean, throwing 100 air mails in a row is always nice. And it gives you a straightforward percentage of where you're at. And then you can gauge yourself from there.
What's your best 100?
My best 100, it's not as good as I would like it. My best 100 is at 66.
Okay. So you're not a Jimmy McGuffin 96?
No. I've always struggled with like open board air mail. So after that, I'll start putting bags in front of the hole and going from there. You're stacking the bag 3-4 high and trying to shoot air mails over that. I think that's good practice as well. Open bag air mail or open board air mail is just it just looks different. You never get that during a game. So yeah. So I do a little bit of that.
I mean, you're telling me you don't showboat a little during the game, a little open board airmail action?
That's not me. I'm too conservative for that.
Yeah. That's good.
Maybe an and one for a win. That would
there
be
you go.
it. Well,
how are you?
But then you're still focusing on.
Do you consider yourself good at dirty bagging and wanting, or do you think that's something? Because I've heard people say, like Brett Guys talked about it, that he's like practices it and is good at dirty bagging, and some people are like, I'm terrible at it. Like, is it a skill?
I feel like I'm better at it than most. I wouldn't say I'm amazing, but I think I'm better at it. I mean, I think I'm worse at dragging bags. I'm not for some reason dragging bags just like they don't move or I miss because I'm focusing on it too much. Dirty bags the complete opposite because I just want to hit the hole hard, and for the most part I'm pretty straight with it, and I throw a hard bag. So if I hit the right spot on the hole, dirty bags come into play quite a bit.
See, and I'm the type of guy that's like I'm dragging like second or third bag because I can drag, but I can't dirty bag at all because I throw this high airmail. I ain't got no low.
Yeah, my airmail's lower, and I can make it go even lower if I really want to smack the hole hard. So, yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any advice that you would give to up and coming players, like people that are maybe grinding or maybe struggling or about to get there? Like, is there anything that really helped you or anything anybody told you is like a advice point?
I mean, just put in the work. Dave Weiser always said, if you want to be good, play 5 times a week. Don't complain people are beating you and they're too good. Just put in the work and you can be just as good as them. If you put in the work and have the dedication, the results will come. Nothing's a straight line up. There will be some roller coasters. There will be some highs and lows. But just don't give up with it. Like you'll see those lows will get higher, and everything will come with time.
And I was just on the Girls for 2 podcast with Michelle, and I'm going to steal her segment now because I like it at the end. But if you got headphones on, what's playing?
What's playing? So I have like a small shuffle. I have a small playlist. I just put in shuffle. I skip through those songs, but it's mostly rap. Some Waka Flocka, some Jeezy, some harder rapper that it'll pump me up a little bit.
What TV show are you watching right now?
What TV show am I watching right now? I'm in between stuff right now. Let me think of what I just finished watching. Couldn't even tell you what I just finished watching. I mean, I just finished watching some movies like Dune and The Batman and stuff like that. I went back and rewatched Entourage, but I had seen that.
Have you seen Ted Lasso yet on Apple TV?
No, I
watch Ted Lasso.
No.
There you go. There's your homework.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
And then favorite food?
Like mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes.
All right, I wouldn't have guessed that.
I mean, like entree wise, like pizza and stuff like steak. But I mean, like
just well-rounded side dish, man. Mashed potatoes.
Man, potatoes, man.
All right.
Like people ask me, like, hey, if you can only eat one food for the rest of your life, I would choose a potato. You can, make it fries. You can make it baked potato. You can make mashed potatoes. That's my go-to answer every single time.
I like it. It's a good one. Well, why don't you do some shout outs to anybody, sponsors, friends, anything that's helped you get here? You shout out whatever you want. You got some time.
Yeah. Hey, I'll give a shout out to my sponsors. Ultra Cornhole, obviously they make the best bags and they're the most respected bag company in the country. So big shout out to them. On top of that, I'll say Merck Boards. That's where my practice facility is at. He lets me go over there pretty much whenever I want. Even if he's working or whatever, he always makes time and room for me. He'll have some releases coming out soon, so be on the lookout for his stuff. All of his stuff. It's a lot more innovative and newer cornhole related equipment that will be coming out. And there's not much else out there like it right now. So definitely be on the lookout for anything that Merck Boards is releasing. And then my last sponsor would be Davern's Tavern, just a local bar here in Chicago. They run a big bags league, blind draws. They have a huge beer garden. So if anyone's ever been in the Chicago area and wants to check out a nice beer garden with some cornhole boards, they can fit up to like 14 sets out there. Big shout out to them as well. And then just friends, family, whatever, everyone for the support.
Awesome, man. Well, what's the rest of your season look like? You got the shootouts coming up. You got, do you doing any more opens? Are you maxed out on regional points? Like what's kind of your goals for the rest of the year for events?
Goals rest of the year. I mean, my main goal coming into this year has always been to win a shootout. I want to win a shootout. It doesn't matter if it's singles, doubles. Ideally, it's one of both. So nationals are always there, but shootouts is definitely where I'm aiming for this year. I plan on going to all the shootouts unless I win one. So the only one I'm not going to right now, I think, is Washington. But besides that, I should be trying to hit all the shootouts. Open-wise, I'm not going to travel to any more opens unless they're at the shootouts. Most of the shootouts and opens start to line up going forward, so I'll be playing in those. And then down the line, Spencer McKenzie's is also on the radar. So, yeah.
That'll be a fun one.
I've had success there in the past, so definitely trying to.
It definitely lends its hand to the low hard throwers with that much wind.
Yeah.
If you got a low hard throw, it definitely helps.
Yeah.
So
I got fourth out there a couple of years ago, and then the year Baldwin and Canva won it, we gave them their one loss that year. We put them in the losers bracket, so had some success, and
Nice.
Trying to win it this year though.
All right, man. Well, really appreciate you joining in. I think that was a lot of really cool insight about the ACL in general. I do think that as this game progresses, the format is due for an overhaul in terms of the point system and the way to qualify and the way to, stay in the pros. Because I think right now it's very lended to, it's harder right now to stay in than it is to get in because it's such a revolving door. And I think it needs to become more of a harder to get in and easier to stay once you finally make it kind of thing. Ultra bags, obviously check out the Viper Bees and Vipers and all their other bags are going to release it, but the Widow Bees just released new carpet bag that's on the website right now for like $95. Check out a set of those if you like carpet. It's their first carpet in a while since the Raptors. But Ultra making some awesome bags, and you're obviously having success with them. But good luck to you, and as well as you and Noah this year, man. I really hope to see you guys on some of the TV and in the winner circle a little bit. And I know hanging out with you a little bit in Iowa, I really enjoy you as a person and your personality. So I hope you continue to success this year, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, really appreciate you joining. Everybody listen, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Really great time here with Dave, but hope you guys have a great rest of your day and rest of your week, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.